Hello and welcome to Copper Dragon Games, where we talk about virtual tabletop resources. Today we're going to be looking at some Foundry add-ons that help with campaign organization. I took a poll a couple of weeks ago about what type of video you wanted me to be working on next, and a video about campaign organization modules was the clear winner among the results. Once I started digging into the scripting of the video, though, I realized that I think this actually needs to be two, so this is the first of two. So without further ado, let's jump into some Foundry modules. Before we get too far into it, I want to point out that the maps that you see are from Heroic Maps. Joe and Sarah were kind enough to send these maps over for me to use in YouTube videos and showing off Foundry features, and I want to thank them for the collaboration with Copper Dragon Games and for letting me interview Joe a couple weeks ago and all the cool maps that they've been sending over. And if you love these maps as much as I do, you can find them on their Patreon page or over at DriveThruRPG. This one specifically is the Caldera Power Station. It's a sci-fi map, which is a little unusual for me to be using on Copper Dragon Games, but I got the opportunity to meet and hang out with Jody and Clint Black from Savage Worlds fame a couple weeks ago as well, and I've really been wanting to do some Savage Rifts content ever since I got to talk to them and remembered how much I loved the Savage Worlds system. So when I got the message from Joe that he'd sent me some more maps from Heroic Maps and realized one of the ones he sent over was sci-fi, I thought, oh yeah, gotta use this one in the next video. But enough of that, let's get back to Foundry content. So the first of the modules that I want to show off today is called Simple Calendar. This is a module that I used to use a lot in my campaigns. I haven't used a lot recently, but if you're housing a lot of your campaign information within Foundry itself, then this can be a great way to handle the way time works in your game and keeping track of things like the phases of the moon and the passage of the months and the days and even hours and seconds if you want to get that specific. There are a lot of settings and things in Simple Calendar that I'm not going to go into too much detail on because this is just a quick overview, but I do want to show off a couple of cool features that I think will be helpful to you if you're choosing to track time at this level of detail within Foundry for your campaign. So when you have the Simple Calendar add-on activated, you can find the tool under Token Controls. You'll have this extra little calendar looking icon down here at the bottom. You can just click on that and bring up all your information. Now I have this set to the Gregorian calendar because it's the real calendar and not fantasy, and it's just the default when you load it. But there's also the Exandrian calendar if you're really into Critical Role stuff. There's the Harptos calendar if you like Forgotten Realms. There's Dark Sun. There's actually, let me look at a list. There's Gregorian, Dark Sun, Eberron, Exandrian, Forbidden Lands, Forgotten Realms, Galarian. There's Greyhawk, there's Traveler, there's even Warhammer, which is super cool. I've never played a Warhammer RPG, but I love the miniatures game. In any case, lots of options, and this is just a starting point. So you can actually go in and change all of these settings. So if you want to rename all the months of the year, you can do that. So you can completely customize your own campaign calendar for your homebrew world or even a published world that just happens to not be in the list. So there's a lot of flexibility there, which is really cool. And it's also really convenient that there are so many presets. So if you play in one of the more popular settings, you don't have to do a lot of work on the front end. You just click which one you want and it's already in there. Throughout your campaign, you can use this to advance the official time within your game, so you move it forward or back with the date controls. You can also get as specific as changing the time of day with the buttons here. You can advance or stop by minutes, hours, seconds. You can jump straight to midday or dawn or dusk or midnight. You can see that it automatically tracks seasons for you, as well as the phases of the moon, which can be really interesting to keep track of, especially if you have, like, say, lycanthropes that are prominent in your campaign, or maybe you've got a Twilight Cleric among your group, or a Worshipper of Selûne, or whatever the case may be, or if you just need to know how dark it is on any given night. Interesting information that to be keeping track of that can add a little more spice, a little more flavor to your setting. But I think the coolest part of this add-on is actually the ability to add notes to each date on the calendar. So if I wanted to, I could add a note on the calendar, and this functions a lot like Google Calendar. So I can add notes, I can title it like today's note because I'm being real fancy with this. I can have it repeat over time as if it were a scheduled event. I can decide whether or not my players can see it. I can add categories. I can also add details at the bottom. So if I want to use this for literal campaign notes where I can take notes on what happened on a particular day, then I can do that here. It's really convenient. But one of the cooler features, which is again similar in a lot of ways to what you would be able to do with Google Calendar is to set reminders. So I can plan events out ahead of time, and when that day pops up, then I get a little reminder. But I can set an event for, say, tomorrow. Post this video, set it to remind me, save it, and then when I advance the game clock to that day, I get a little pop-up that shows me that I've got something to do for that day in the campaign. Now let's take a moment to talk about how you manage your quests that you give your party in your campaign and how you track that information, whether they've completed those quests or what objectives they still have remaining, what rewards they get at the end, and so on and so forth. Now there are a couple ways of tracking this in Foundry. You can do it just normally with text notes in your journal if you want to, but there are two add-ons that I think will help improve that experience. The first one is Forien's quest log, and this is one that I've been using for quite a long time to manage this type of information in my campaigns. And to better show this off, I'm going to switch back over to my current campaign where I'm running the old 2nd edition module Night Below in 5th edition. So once you have Forien's quest log activated, you can just check on your journal entries tab, and at the bottom of the screen you'll find a new button called quest log. And when you open it, you will find an interface that lets you add and manipulate quests that your party is on. Now if you're familiar with the Night Below modules, then a lot of these will probably look familiar. My players are currently part of the way into Book 3, The Sunless Sea, and so a lot of these in-progress quests are some of the locations in that cavern that the players have at least some amount of information on, but have not completely explored the area, or they haven't completed what I expect of them to complete before they advance. You may also note that my quests here are arranged and labeled main or side quest. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the Party Resources module that we'll cover next. But for now, let's just talk about the quest log. Each of these entries is a quest, a thing that the players need to do in order to advance the story and potentially level up. In this case, we have Jelenith, one of the primary reasons that the characters begin exploring the Night Below setting to begin with. She has disappeared, and the players go on a quest to try to figure out what happened to her and eventually find out that she was kidnapped. I'm now realizing that I'm giving a lot of spoilers for Night Below, so I'll go back and add a spoiler alert in the video before this actually comes up. But anyway, each one of these quest entries gives you the opportunity to add description that the players can see. You can set objectives that the players may or may not be able to see. You can delete them, edit them, rearrange them. You can check off when the players have completed them. You can also add rewards at the bottom. You can add specific items from Foundry if you're using the Foundry interface for character management. You can also add things like gold or just notes if you're planning to give the players something that doesn't correspond to a specific something or other from the compendium. There's also a GM notes page where you can include things that the players will never see unless you copy and paste it back over, I guess. And then you can manage the quest, so you can configure who can see it, you can add art, you can add subquests, all these different things. You can also star the quest so that it gains a little star and becomes more prominent on the page, so players know that's what they need to be looking for most, I guess, what's most important. And then on the far left, you can also manage which of these categories it falls in. So there may be lots of inactive quests. You can see here there are some of these that the players never actually got around to doing, like the eel hold problem from book 1. You can also mark your quests as failed. You've got in progress quests, you've got completed quests, and then you have available quests, which are those that you kind of want your players to know about, but that they're not currently actively pursuing. You can use this a lot of different ways, but it's a really convenient way of tracking your player's progress in the story. Now this one I've been using for literally years in my campaigns, and I love it. It's what I've gotten used to. It's gotten updates over time. It's amazing. I might not use it for my next campaign, and the reason is I just discovered Monk's Journal Enhancements, and that module carries a lot of very similar functionality to this one. It looks a little differently in the journal tab, but it lets you track a lot of similar things, but it also adds a lot of extra features that Forien's quest log does not. So let's take a look at that one real quick. So with Monk's Enhanced Journal, you can do things like create journal entries and label them with lots of different types. And one of those potential types is the quest. I'm going to put find Gelinith. But you can see on this page that a lot of the same information that I would have been tracking in Forien's quest log is also available here. I have the source of the quest. I can mark it as unavailable, available, completed, failed. I can choose whether or not to show it to players. I can give it a description, mention what kind of rewards will be available. I can add notes. I can star it so that it becomes more prominent. Now, as I said before, I haven't used this particular add-on very much. I've just played around with it a little bit. Forien's quest log has been excellent for me in the past, and I don't intend to abandon it until the end of my current campaign. I just have too much information stored in there, and it's probably not worth it to switch over. But if you're just starting out with one or the other of these, this one is worth at least checking out and seeing if you like the formatting and the feel of it better. The reason I'm thinking I'll probably switch is that Monk's Enhanced Journal not only manages quests, but also has lots of other features. So there's the quest piece, but normally when you create a journal entry, they are just pretty plain text boxes, and you have the option to add pictures and stuff. But with this one, you have all these different templates. So I can add an encounter with different monsters and loot and DCs that are relevant and notes, and I could also add a checklist. Maybe there's a list of potion ingredients that the players need to collect before they can assemble a potion and finish the next part of their adventure. It seems like Monk's module has a lot of the same functionality that Forien's quest log does, plus a lot of additional options that I would like to make use of in my next campaign. So I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to make the switch, but at this point it's looking pretty likely. The next tool I want to talk about to keep your campaign more organized is the Party Resources add-on. This is a great way to track things like food supplies, for example, or if you're running out of the abyss, it could be used to track the pursuit level of the drow as they chase you around the Underdark after you've escaped their grasp. There are a lot of things to do with it, but the cool thing is that it just gives you an extra place to track resources. This one is very simple and very eloquent in the way that it tracks information. You get on the Actors tab a new little box that pops up, and you can add new resources to it, and each of them you can name them, you can use uploaded images for them, you can notify players when the values change, you can allow players to manage them, all kinds of different things. I personally am using these to track advancement for my PCs. I use a variant of the milestone leveling system in which a party can complete a main quest and level up immediately, or they can complete a number of side quests and level up through those as well. I think milestone leveling as it stands rewards players for pursuing the main quest line a little too hard, and codifying an extra additional way to advance gives players a little more incentive to explore side quests and go off and do things that are not tied to the main quest line. But that too is a conversation for a different video. The point is, I can track that advancement in here and just show my players how many main quests they've completed, how many side quests they've completed. And it's really easy from there to judge when they're going to see their next level up. The next add-on module I want to point out for organizing your campaign is Map Note Hover Display. Normal Foundry behavior for when you have a map note on a room is when you hover over that map note, you get the title that pops up, and then you can double click on it to see the journal entry. If you have Map Note Hover Display turned on, instead of just showing the title when you hover over it, you get the entire journal entry. It does take up more space on your screen if you have really long journal notes for each of these locations or whatever else you're marking on your map, but I think in general, being able to see this information from your journal entries without having to double click and open up separate windows and just having it there at a glance can be a great organization tool for using your journal entries effectively. Last but not least, even though I tend to lean on Google Docs more so than wiki-style web solutions, it is very important to note that a lot of the campaign organization tools that are out there, like Kanka, like World Anvil, like, what am I forgetting? Realmworks. There are probably more that I'm not aware of, but those are kind of the big three. There are importer tools for each of those that will pull in all your information and set them up as journal entries for you in your campaign. So if you happen to use one of those websites to organize your information outside of Foundry, then it's really easy to import it. It's really easy to bring it in with one of those add-ons that's appropriate to the site that you're using to just pull it all in and have it set up very simply. If you enjoyed this video and found some value in it, I want to encourage you to check out our other videos and playlists, which you can find right here. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can follow along. And if you want to make sure you never miss anything, click that notification bell before you go as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.